In a world where monsters and humans exist, we learn that monsters were the greatest power on the continent at that time. The demon king Satan, along with his 4 generals, began to take control of the surrounding islands. He did this by sending each general with their forces to seize an island, and indeed, the generals succeeded in conquering the islands by defeating the human armies. But over time, hope finally appeared for humanity, a hero who would save the world from the darkness of evil power. The hero and his companions began fighting the Demon King's forces in the west and managed to defeat the general Lucifer, bringing the west back under human control. The hero and his companions continued battling the remaining generals of the Demon King until they reclaimed all the islands. Afterward, they advanced to fight the Demon King on the central island, the stronghold of the Demon King Satan. A fierce battle took place, ending in favor of the humans. The hero's companions attacked the Demon King's generals, while the hero himself fought and defeated the Demon King Satan. As time passed, the human army crushed the monster army, forcing Satan to retreat for a while to regain his strength. He flew into the sky, telling the humans that he would leave the continent of Asula for now, but he would definitely return and take over the entire continent, making them pay. At that moment, a black hole appeared in the sky, and Satan entered it to escape, immediately followed by one of his generals. The humans celebrated their victory at that moment for defeating the Demon King. The scene then shifted to Satan and the general, who had transformed into humans and had been transported to another world, a world with no magic or monsters, just a human world. Satan was confused about where he was but told the general, Shill, that they needed to find a place to recover quickly. As they wandered the streets, they were amazed by the city's lights, cars, and all the technological advancements since it was their first time seeing such things. Shill was stunned when he saw Satan under the light. He now looked like a young human boy. Satan looked at him and asked what was wrong, but he was also shocked to see that Shill had turned into a human man in his mid-30s. They couldn't understand what had happened to them, but Satan calmed Shill down. At that moment, 2 police officers approached them, calling out because of their strange appearance. Shill snapped at the officer, yelling, "How dare you talk to us like that, you fool? Do you want to die or what?" However, the officers didn't understand their language and assumed that Satan and Shill were foreigners. One officer asked if they spoke Japanese and if they were okay since they seemed to be in trouble. Shill got even angrier when he realized the officers couldn't understand them, but Satan calmed him down and told him to conserve his magic so they could explore this world. The officers then reported the presence of 2 oddly dressed individuals with minor injuries. Satan was amazed by the police car and told Shill, "Look at that impressive vehicle. It seems to move without horses. It must be powered by some kind of magic." The officer then asked them to come with him to the police station. As he placed his hand on Shill, Shill angrily pushed him away, yelling, "Are you stupid? How dare you touch me, you filthy human? I am General Shill, commander of the Demon King's army." Shill attempted to use his magic to destroy the officer, but to his shock, nothing happened. He looked completely foolish. The officer took them in the car and drove them to the police station, where he offered them food. At that moment, Satan used his abilities to analyze the food's ingredients. The officer told Satan that since he was injured, he would treat him as a guest despite it being against the rules. At that moment, Satan used his magic to control the officer, ordering him to provide all possible information about this world. Satan successfully gathered as much information as possible about the new world and then went to Shill in the other interrogation room, where he was eating the food the police had given him. Satan informed him that they would use hypnotic magic to gather all the information they needed about this world. Shill listened as Satan explained everything he had learned. He told him that they were in a world called Earth, in a country called Japan, and that they were currently in the capital, Tokyo. Satan continued explaining everything about this world, and Shill was shocked to learn that magic didn't exist here at all. It was considered mere fantasy by the humans. Satan and Shill left the police station, finally understanding why their appearances had changed. It was due to the absence of magic in this world. Satan told Shill that he had managed to retain some of his magic within his body before being transported here and asked if Shill had managed to retain any of his magic as well. Shill tried using his magic again and looked foolish for the second time. This time, a taxi stopped when Shill raised his hand, thinking he was hailing it. Shill was confused and asked Satan what was happening. Satan replied that it might be a new kind of magic unique to him that summoned the vehicle for them. Satan and Shill decided that they needed to find a way to restore their magic so they could return to their world. Satan concluded that they had to adapt to human society and follow their rules properly until they could find a way back. Satan and Shill entered the civil registry office, where Satan used his hypnosis ability on the clerk and requested birth certificates and identification cards for both of them. They succeeded and then went to open a bank account, depositing the money Satan had stolen from the police officer. After that, they visited a real estate office to rent a place to stay. The agent found them strange due to their odd behavior and took them to a house owned by someone just as eccentric as them. The agent showed them the room they would stay in. At that moment, the landlady arrived, welcoming them and introducing herself as Sheba. She lived in the house next door to the building they were moving into. That evening, Satan and Shill sat down to think about their next step. Suddenly, Satan's body collapsed from exhaustion, and he fainted. They quickly called for an ambulance. Satan woke up in the hospital and was informed that he had passed out due to physical weakness from lack of food. Satan became very frustrated upon learning that the cost of the injection was equivalent to a full month's rent. He stated that they desperately needed money in this world, meaning they both had to find jobs. Over time, Satan found a job at a restaurant, while Shill became a homemaker, taking care of the household and managing their daily lives. Satan gradually adapted to human society, taking on the name Mao, while Shill became known as Ashia. One day, Ashia argued with Mao, complaining that he wasted his salary on trivial things, leaving them with nothing to eat except 2 cucumbers and some milk. Mao quickly fled from Ashia, saying, "I'm off to work, so leave me alone." Mao hopped onto his bicycle and rode quickly to the restaurant. While waiting at a traffic light, heavy rain started pouring. He noticed a girl running in the rain without an umbrella. Mao helped her by giving her his umbrella before rushing off on his bicycle to work. Upon arriving, Mao was excited to start a new day on the job, working as a cashier at the store. Meanwhile, Ashia was at the public library, searching for a way to restore their magic and return to their world as Mao had instructed. However, as time passed, Ashia grew frustrated, unable to find any information about magic in this world. Suddenly, an earthquake struck. Mao and his co-worker, Chi, noticed it while working. Chi was especially annoyed because she had dropped the fries again for the 6th time. Mao tried to reassure her, saying she would get better over time. She sighed, saying she was tired of cleaning up the messes she caused all day. At that moment, their manager entered the break room, informing them that the store was full of customers. She told them to return to work energetically once their break was over. She also reminded Chi to keep the fries in their container instead of dropping them on the floor again. Mao and Chi resumed work, but due to the rush, the fryer malfunctioned. Mao became flustered, unsure of what to do, and considered using his remaining magic to fix the problem quickly. He hesitated, unsure whether to use his magic or not, until the manager arrived and confirmed that the fryer was broken. She decided to halt operations until it was repaired. Mao felt disappointed that the day had been ruined and that he couldn't meet the target he had set for himself. Chi reassured him that it wasn't his fault, and the fryer would be fixed by the end of the day. The manager then called Mao, making him nervous as he wondered what she wanted to talk about. He feared she would blame him for the fryer malfunctioning and not meeting the target. However, when he met with her, she surprised him with good news. She wanted to offer him a full-time position at the restaurant. Mao was overjoyed and rushed home to tell Ashia the great news, excited that his salary would finally increase, allowing them to cover all their monthly expenses with ease. On his way home, the girl Mao had helped in the rain stopped him. She told him that his appearance had changed a lot from his true form and that she had been watching him for a while. She had seen him trying to use magic. Mao was shocked and exclaimed, "Impossible. Are you the hero Emilia?" Emilia asked why he was working as an ordinary human in a restaurant. Mao was stunned to realize that Emilia had also ended up in this world. Time rewound to the moment when Satan escaped through the portal. We saw the hero Emilia and her companions wondering what to do next. Emilia told them she would follow him, but one of her friends objected, saying they had no idea where the portal led, making it extremely dangerous. Emilia replied that it didn't matter what world he went to, they had to find him and defeat him. She then rushed into the portal after him. Returning to the present, Mao was still shocked to see Emilia standing before him. He asked her what she was doing here. She informed him that she had entered the portal after him to catch him and defeat him. He became nervous and tried to talk to her, but Emilia was firm in her decision, pulling out a knife and telling him to shut up. Mao was surprised by the knife in her hand and laughed, saying, "Isn't that the one they sell in the market for 100 yuan? Emilia was taken aback and asked what was wrong with that. Mao then asked what had happened to her sacred sword. Emilia dodged the question and snapped, "That's none of your business." Mao smirked and said, "I get it now. You can't use it right now, can you?" Emilia yelled back, "Well, you can't use your magic here the way you did in Asula either." At that moment, she lunged at Mao. Before they could fight, the police intervened and took them to the station. Ashia noticed that Mao was running late. At the police station, an officer asked them why they were fighting. Emilia bluntly stated that she wanted to defeat Mao. The officer was confused and asked what she meant by defeat him. Assuming they were friends, he told her that regardless of what her friend had done to upset her, pulling a knife on him was wrong. Emilia grew even more frustrated, exclaiming that there was no way they could be friends. The officer calmly told her that if she wanted to end her relationship with him, they should sit down and talk like adults. Realizing that the officer would never understand, Emilia suppressed her anger and remained silent until they were released. On their way home, Emilia told Mao that she wouldn't do anything to him tonight, but since she knew where he lived, he should never sleep peacefully. One day soon, she would finish him off. Mao remarked that her behavior didn't seem very heroic. She snapped at him again, saying, "You're the last person who should say that, Dark Lord." Mao then replied, "Aren't you the hero? Give me back my umbrella or pay me 100 yuan. Emilia scoffed, "How can a hero like me return the Dark Lord's umbrella? From now on, watch yourself, because I can kill you anytime." The next morning, Emilia went to her job at the customer service center. Her colleague asked if she wanted to eat curry with her. Emilia replied that the restaurant was surely packed at that time. Her friend then suggested they grab food from a fast food place instead. Emilia tensed up, knowing that was where Mao worked, and quickly refused, saying, "Anywhere but that place." Just then, they received a new task and abandoned their lunch plans, focusing on work. After finishing her shift, Emilia walked home, buying what she needed along the way. Once home, she watched TV. Her life in this world was far better than Mao's. Her apartment was elegant, and she ate much better food, like chicken and rice, while Mao had only cucumbers and tofu. Meanwhile, Mao was eating when someone suddenly knocked on the door. Ashiya asked if it was the newspaper vendor. Mao replied that they didn't even have enough money for a subscription. Ashiya went to check, and Emilia's voice called out, "Where are your manners? You're the Demon King's general. I'm the hero Emilia. Did you forget me or what?" Mao and Ashiya were shocked. Emilia demanded, "Hurry up and open the door, accept your fate and face death." Ashiya panicked, locked the door, and asked Mao what was happening. Mao admitted that he had met her yesterday and had forgotten to mention it, apologizing before explaining what had happened. Outside, Emilia kept yelling, threatening to break down the door if they didn't open it. She continued shouting. Mao and Ashiya ignored her completely. Mao told Ashiya that Emilia was just like them now, completely powerless. Ashiya was surprised and asked, "So the hero can't use the power of the heavens at all in this world?" Mao confirmed, "Exactly. Don't worry about her, just open the door." They finally let her in. Emilia immediately mocked their tiny, shabby apartment, saying the walls were so thin that anyone outside could hear everything. Mao sarcastically responded, "Wow, you really hurt my feelings." Ashiya explained that they had more important priorities than luxury. Emilia then pointed at their food and asked, "Is this what you're eating?" Mao nodded, saying, "Yes. Look at Ashiya, he's amazing, he even knows how to cook." Emilia was even more annoyed by their pathetic situation. She muttered that she couldn't believe she had followed them into this world just to kill such a pitiful demon king. She added that she lived alone but was doing much better than they were. Mao then asked about her companions. Emilia snapped at him to shut up and angrily explained that the high priest had been following her, but unfortunately, the portal had closed before he could enter. Mao understood the situation and told her that they now needed a way to return to their world. He added that, unfortunately, they didn't have the money to do anything. Ashiya stated that their current plan was to take control of this world. Emilia was surprised and asked Mao, "How do you plan to do all that when you're busy all day?" Mao responded that if she thought he worked all day without a break, she was mistaken. He explained that his plan was to take control of Japan first and that his first step was becoming a full-time employee at the fast food restaurant. The next step was to become part of the workforce in this world, earn money and influence, and eventually gain enough power to control more and more people until he could dominate this world. Then, he would return to Asula. Ashiya clapped for him, while Emilia was annoyed by their ridiculous plan. She told them she wasn't interested in them anymore and would return home since she had work in the morning. She explained that she could easily finish them off with her remaining power but wouldn't do it just yet. Mao asked her why, and she replied that if she used up her power on them now, she wouldn't be able to return to Asula. That's why she would let them live until she found another way back. She also informed them that her name in this world was Emmy, not Emilia. Then, she left and returned home. The next morning, Emmy went to work. Her colleague asked why she seemed so tense lately and if she wanted to have lunch together. Emmy replied that she had other plans for the day. That evening, after work, Emmy passed by Mao's apartment and observed them. She thought to herself that there was no way the Demon King had accepted such a poor lifestyle. He must be plotting something evil. At that moment, Mao and Ashiya stepped outside, talking. Emmy quickly hid and eavesdropped on their conversation. She decided to follow them and keep an eye on them. She found that they were simply going to the supermarket to buy daily necessities. Emmy was surprised to see that Mao followed human rules and laws. The next day at work, Emmy's colleague again asked if she wanted to have dinner together. Once again, Emmy declined, saying she was busy. She continued observing Mao and Ashiya, following them daily, only to find that they were leading completely ordinary lives. This continued for several days until one day, Emmy finally went to Mao's workplace. She asked to speak with him for a moment. He ignored her and asked what she wanted to order. She insisted that they needed to talk outside immediately, but he continued to ignore her. She then told him that she would wait for him at the intersection where they had first met after his shift ended. He still ignored her, so she left. She, Mao's co-worker, asked if Emmy was one of the strange customers. Mao sighed and said, "Yes, unfortunately, there are many of those in this world." She then asked if he knew her, as she had seen him talk to her multiple times. Mao admitted that he did, and they continued working. Meanwhile, Emmy continued watching Mao from outside the restaurant. After work, she asked Mao if he had felt the earthquake the previous night. Mao replied that he had, to some extent. She told him it was so strong that when she got home, her entire house was a mess. Mao was surprised and said that the earthquake hadn't been that strong. She replied that her classmates had also said the same thing before leaving. After work, Mao went to meet Emmy at their usual spot. He asked her what she wanted to say. Emmy asked if he had decided to stay in this world forever. Mao was confused and asked why she was suddenly asking that question. Emmy told him that, over the past few days, she had observed how he interacted with people and adapted to this society. She pointed out that he was living a humble, honest life, free of any evil acts, despite being the Dark Lord. She also mentioned that he had gained the trust of his manager, co-workers, and even customers. Mao asked her what her point was. She told him to give up on returning to Asula and start a new life in this world instead. Mao, of course, refused, saying, "Are you stupid? My main goal is to return and take over Asula again." At that moment, someone attacked them. Neither of them knew who it was, and they were both surprised by the sudden assault. They quickly ran to an isolated area to avoid involving others. When they reached a secluded spot, Mao assumed they had successfully escaped their attacker. Emmy asked Mao what was going on, but he told her he had no idea. He added that their attacker wasn't just an ordinary sniper, they were using magical energy. Emmy was stunned. Mao explained that their assailant possessed a great amount of magical power and clearly knew them well, which meant they were definitely from Asula. Mao left and headed home, but Emmy followed him. Mao asked, "Were you planning to set me up tonight or what?" Emmy got flustered and denied it. Mao then asked what she was doing there. Nervously, Emmy said she had lost her wallet and had no way to get home, so she asked to stay at his place for the night. They entered the apartment, and Ashiya was shocked to see the hero inside. Mao reassured him that she wouldn't fight them. He then explained everything that had happened, including the mysterious attacker. Mao prepared a place for Emmy to sleep and gave her 1,000 yuan so she could go home first thing in the morning. Ashiya kept arguing with Emmy, and she was irritated that she had to accept help from her enemy, the Demon King. Everyone eventually went to sleep. Meanwhile, Mao started receiving strange messages about the earthquakes but couldn't understand what they meant. The next morning, Mao and Ashiya woke up to find that Emmy had left. However, she had left them breakfast, far better than what they usually ate. They enjoyed the meal, finding it delicious. Then, they noticed the key on the floor under the window. Mao commented that Emmy must have taken the key, locked the door, and then tossed it back inside through the window. He remarked that such a gesture suited a hero. Mao then asked Ashiya what he would have done if he were in her place. Ashiya responded that he would have simply taken the key with him after locking the door. Mao smirked and said, "Of course, you're no villain." Meanwhile, Emmy was at home watching the news. She heard a report about gunfire in a residential area before dawn and saw that Mao's bicycle had been destroyed by bullets. She then saw Mao and Ashiya on television at the crime scene, and it was revealed that the police were looking for the bike's owner, as they might be connected to the incident. At the same time, she messaged Mao, asking if they could meet up later that day. Her mother asked if she was going out, and she enthusiastically replied that she had some plans. Her mother reminded her to be careful due to the strange incidents happening around town. Back at work, Emmy's colleague asked her about the shooting incident and mentioned that it had happened near Emmy's home. Emmy clarified that the crime scene was about 3 stations away from her place. Her colleague then asked where they should eat for lunch, suggesting a curry restaurant. Emmy quickly declined, explaining that she had lost her wallet the previous day and would spend her lunch break on paperwork instead. Just then, Emmy received a work call and answered as usual. However, the voice on the other end said, "Oh, it seems you've successfully blended into Japanese society, Hero Emilia." Emmy was stunned and immediately asked, "Who is this?" The caller replied, "I am someone who knows everything about the Dark Lord and the hero, and I'm also the one planning to eliminate both of you." The mysterious person continued, I never imagined the hero would collaborate with the Dark Lord. But don't worry, I will soon get rid of both of you and create a new world in Asula." Emi yelled at him, causing everyone around her to look at her strangely. She calmed down and asked, "What is your problem?" The caller demanded an explanation for why she and the Dark Lord had fled from a mere assassination attempt. Emi then realized that the person speaking was definitely a dark monster. She responded, "I know that all the dark generals died while protecting Shil. So, tell me, who are you? And what exactly is your plan to fix Asula as you claim?" The mysterious figure assured her that they would meet soon and that she would find out everything then. He immediately hung up. Later, during her break, Emi received a phone call. It was the police summoning her to the station. She went there and found Mao and Ashia already present. It turned out that the police had identified them through Mao's bicycle. Emi glared at them and yelled, "I can't believe this." So now, at the end of the day, the hero has to be responsible for bailing the Dark Lord out of trouble? Mao grew nervous and told her he had no other option since he didn't know anyone else who could help him. He mentioned that he could have called his boss, but he didn't want to cause her any trouble. Emi shouted at him, "So you decided to cause trouble for me instead?" Mao nonchalantly replied, "Well, as the Dark Lord, it's my duty to be a problem for the hero. That's only natural." After they left the station, Emi informed Mao that she had received a threatening call at work. The caller had said they were targeting both of them. She then yelled at him, telling him to be careful because only she was allowed to defeat him. Mao sighed and replied, "How many times do I have to tell you? Stop talking like that in public." People on the street stared at them, confused by their conversation. Emi felt embarrassed, glared at Mao, and said, "Just don't go dying at the hands of some random person," before storming off. Mao was left thinking about her words. Who could possibly be targeting both the hero and the Dark Lord at the same time? Later, she returned home from school, changed her clothes, and prepared to meet Mao as they had planned. Meanwhile, Ashia took Mao to a clothing store, forcing him to wear something decent for his meeting with Chi instead of the ragged clothes he always wore. Mao and Chi met up and went to a cafe to talk. From a distance, Ashia watched them closely. At the same time, Emi arrived and noticed Ashia lurking in a suspicious manner. She approached him and asked, "What are you doing here?" Ashia was startled by her sudden appearance and snapped, "None of your business." Emi squinted at him and asked who he was spying on. Then, she spotted Mao sitting with Chi. Furious, she turned to Ashia and asked, "What exactly are you guys planning to do with that innocent girl?" Ashia quickly calmed her down and explained the situation. The two of them continued watching from afar, but Emi got bored of standing around and decided to enter the cafe. Mao was stunned when he saw Emi walk in with Ashia. He had no idea what they were doing there. Mao became increasingly anxious about the situation. Emi then walked straight to their table and told Chi, "Mao is evil. He's not what he appears to be at all." Chi snapped back, "And who are you to suddenly barge in and say all this about Mao?" Emi responded, "I'm his enemy. If you stay near him, he'll only bring you bad luck." Mao tried to calm them both down, but it was no use. The two girls continued arguing about their views on him. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the entire place, causing the building to collapse. Everyone was trapped beneath the rubble. Emi and Chi were together in one area, and Chi immediately asked about Mao's whereabouts. Emi reassured her, "He must be somewhere nearby. Don't worry, he's definitely alive." At that moment, Mao reappeared in front of Emi, but this time, he was in his true form as the Dark Lord. Emi was shocked and immediately demanded, "How did you revert to your real form?" Mao, equally confused, replied, "I don't know. I just found myself like this the moment the place collapsed." Emi thought to herself that Mao must have regained his powers. She saw this as her long-awaited opportunity to regain her own strength and finally destroy the Dark Lord. But she was caught off guard when Mao instead told her to take care of Chi. He said he would create an escape route so they could get out before the situation got worse. Mao then used his overwhelming power to clear the debris, creating a path for everyone to escape. Emi was left in shock. She couldn't understand why the Dark Lord, the embodiment of absolute evil, was now saving people. The town was in complete chaos, and the earthquake had caused massive destruction throughout the city. However, despite the catastrophe, there were no reported injuries, which was a relief. Mao and Emi managed to escape the rubble and successfully rescued everyone. At that moment, Emi recalled a childhood memory, bringing lunch to her father in the fields. She was happy because her father enjoyed the food. Their neighbor passed by and asked if she had prepared the meal. Emi proudly confirmed that she had. Smiling, the man told her that the food must be delicious since she made it herself. She gave him some, and everyone shared a happy moment. Then, they heard news about the Dark Lord's army conquering the southern and eastern islands. The next attack was expected to be on the western islands. Emi's father reassured everyone that they would be safe since the royal army was protecting them. However, The neighbor mentioned that it would be difficult for the army to withstand the monstrous forces of General Lucifer. Emmy became anxious and asked if the monsters would come to their village. Her father comforted her, saying everything would be fine, the army would protect them. Days passed, and the royal army arrived in Emmy's village. Emmy was excited to see them and eagerly asked if they had come to protect them from the monsters. She ran to tell her father about their arrival. However, her father told her that the army was there for her. Emmy was shocked and asked why. He explained that he had raised and protected her for this moment. Confused, Emmy didn't understand what he meant. He told her that she was the daughter of a guardian queen from the lineage of heroes and that she was the only one in all of Asula capable of defeating the Dark Lord. Young Emmy was devastated and protested, saying, "You're wrong. I'm just your daughter." Her father reassured her that she was indeed his daughter, but her mother had been a guardian queen from the bloodline of heroes. Emmy burst into tears, saying she didn't understand any of it. Her father hugged her, crying as well, and told her that she would understand one day. Through her tears, Emmy asked if he would come with her. He apologized, explaining that he couldn't go with her but expressed how much he loved her as his only daughter. Emmy cried as she left with the royal army. That was the last time she saw him. A few days later, she received the devastating news. Her father had died, and their village had been destroyed by the Dark Army under the command of General Lucifer. From that moment, Emmy began her training to master her abilities. Returning to the present, Emmy saw that Mao had reverted to his human form. He checked on Chi, relieved that she was unharmed. At that moment, a police officer approached and recognized Chi. Her father was an officer at the Shinjuku West Police Station. Mao remembered meeting Chi's father. It was the first person he had encountered when he arrived in Japan. After a brief conversation, they parted ways. Mao and Emmy walked together, and Emmy asked him what he planned to do next. Mao replied that he would go home since he was exhausted. He then mentioned that the recent attack against them had failed, meaning their enemies would likely lay low for a while. Emmy was confused. "What attack?" she asked. Mao explained that the earthquake was not a natural disaster, it was a deliberate attack. Emmy was shocked. "Who could have done that?" she asked. Mao admitted that he didn't know exactly who it was, but he was certain the enemy was nearby. However, they wouldn't make another move just yet since he was beginning to regain his power. But who could do something like this? Emmy questioned. "It's difficult to use magic in this world." At that moment, Emmy's co-worker, Rika, called out to her, asking if she was okay. Mao told Emmy to go and reassure her friend, feeling glad that Emmy had people who cared about her in this world. Meanwhile, Ashiya ran toward Mao, visibly worried. He apologized, saying that he had allowed Emmy to get close to him and had failed to sense the enemy's presence. Mao dismissed his concerns, telling him to stop apologizing and to head home since he was exhausted. Later, Emmy returned home with Rika, who made her dinner. Meanwhile, Mao and Ashiya were heading home when they were stopped by police officers. The officers asked them a few questions and warned them to be cautious, as there had been a series of thefts in the area recently. Rika also watched the news and heard about the recent surge in criminal activity. The next morning, Emmy went to see Mao and returned the 1,000 yuan he had lent her. She declared that she owed him nothing now. As usual, they started arguing. Emmy then asked if Ashiya was alright since she hadn't seen him after the incident. Mao reassured her that Ashiya was fine, though he was feeling down about not being able to help them. He was still resting. Mao then asked if Emmy was okay as well. Emmy snapped at him, "You're my enemy. I don't need you worrying about me." She turned to leave, but just as Mao was about to warn her about the broken step, she tripped and fell flat on her face. Mao sighed and helped her inside. Ashiya treated her wounds with first aid. Afterward, they argued again. Emmy asked him, "What happened to you? You're the Dark Lord. Evil is your purpose. But now you're saving people, worrying about them. You've become a pathetic, poor human who even cooks for himself. And on top of that, everyone around you likes you." Mao yelled back, "Well, I've never seen a hero fall flat on her face from tripping on the stairs." At that moment, Emmy broke down in tears and asked, "If you're so kind and merciful, why did you kill my father?" She continued, "The Dark Lord I knew was supposed to be ruthless and only care about his own survival." Emmy let out all her pent-up emotions, sobbing uncontrollably. Mao, realizing her pain, apologized. He admitted that he hadn't understood humans back then. Just then, Chi and Ashiya entered the room. The tension between Mao and Emmy was still thick in the air. Ashiya explained that he had run into Chi on the way and that she wanted to check on Mao, so he brought her along. However, upon seeing the tense situation, Chi apologized for intruding and quickly left. At that moment, their landlady, Shiba, arrived and introduced herself to Emmy. She then informed Mao that she had decided to renovate the building due to the earthquakes. She needed the approval of all the tenants before proceeding. Suddenly, tremors struck again. Meanwhile, Emmy's allies from Asula were on their way to the human world. They rushed through the magical portal, heading toward Japan. At the same time, she was walking home when she accidentally bumped into a suspicious-looking man. She quickly apologized, but he ominously said, "You'll make a suitable sacrifice." He continued, "I've been watching you for a long time. I will feed on your despair and eliminate both the Dark Lord and the hero." Just then, a passerby noticed the strange interaction and tried to intervene. But at that moment, the suspicious man unfurled massive black wings. Declaring that he would surpass the Dark Lord, he unleashed destruction upon the city. Mao, Emi, and Ashiya saw the chaos from a distance. Mao rushed toward the source and shouted, "I knew it. What are you doing here, Lucifer?" Emi was also shocked to see Lucifer and told him that he was supposed to be dead. She had burned him with her sacred sword. Mao responded that Lucifer must have survived thanks to the human priest who was helping him, Priest Orba. At that moment, Orba appeared, and Emi was stunned to see that he had betrayed the Dark Army. Mao explained that everything happening now was part of Orba's plan. Orba smirked and said that since he had been exposed, there was no point in hiding it anymore. He welcomed Emi, saying, "It's been a long time since I last saw you, hero." Emi was on the verge of tears from the shock. She asked Orba why he had betrayed them and sided with Lucifer. Just as Orba was about to answer, Mao interrupted, saying, "It's simple. He planned to eliminate you two after you defeated the Dark Lord and his army. That way, he could rule the world himself." Orba was stunned that Mao had figured out his plan. At that moment, Lucifer fired a magical shot, hitting Ashiya with a serious wound. Lucifer then flew into the sky, preparing to finish off Emi as well. He conjured a massive magic circle in the sky and unleashed a barrage of flames, but they blocked his attacks using their own magic. People in the area panicked and began running for their lives. Mao and Emi grabbed Ashiya and fled as well. Emi was frustrated by their retreat and asked Mao why they were running away. Mao told her that saving Ashiya's life was the top priority. Emi then asked why Lucifer had such overwhelming magical power while they didn't. Mao explained that Lucifer was drawing power from people's negative emotions. He had been behind all the recent thefts in the city, spreading fear to accumulate energy. At that moment, Lucifer caught up with them and blocked their path. Lucifer then asked Mao how he knew all of this. Mao explained that he had figured it out after the building collapse. At that moment, he had regained his true form because he absorbed the fear of the people around him, which allowed him to regain his magic. Lucifer then questioned why Mao hadn't used this knowledge to spread terror in this world and restore his power in order to return to Asula. Mao replied that, over time, he had come to enjoy experiencing life as a human in this world. It had been an interesting and enjoyable experience for him. Lucifer was infuriated by Mao's response. "Then I'll do it myself. I'll spread fear in your place," he declared. Lucifer then revealed Chi, who was unconscious in his grasp. He chased after Mao and Emi while unleashing powerful magical attacks. They barely managed to dodge them, but Mao eventually suffered a serious injury. Still, he kept running. At that moment, Orba appeared and shot Mao with a gun. Lucifer and Orba had them completely surrounded. However, Mao used his magic to teleport them away. They reappeared on Koshu Street in front of Sasazuka Station. Lucifer appeared before them again, declaring, "There's no escaping from me." The people in the area screamed in terror upon seeing Lucifer and Orba in the sky. Lucifer then fired a devastating magical blast, piercing through Mao's chest and leaving a massive hole in his torso. Emi was horrified by the sight. Lucifer laughed cruelly and discarded Chi, saying he no longer needed her. Emi quickly ran forward and caught Chi before she hit the ground. Lucifer then turned to Orba and declared that he had finally fulfilled their agreement. Mao was dead. Now, he would unleash terror and destruction upon this world. Lucifer then began using his magic to devastate the city, instilling fear in everyone's hearts. A massive structure was about to collapse on top of Emi and Chi, about to crush them both. But at that moment, Mao reappeared in his true form as the Dark Lord and saved them. Mao smirked at Lucifer and thanked him for allowing him to regain his true form. Emi was stunned by Mao's return to his original self. She realized that he had intentionally gone to a place filled with people in order to absorb their fear and regain his strength. At that moment, Emi activated her own power as well, unleashing the power of the hero. Mao then used his magic to create a protective barrier around all the humans in the area. Emi charged at Lucifer at full speed, and an intense battle began between them. Lucifer overpowered Emi and mocked her, asking how she planned to keep fighting when she couldn't restore her magic. Suddenly, Ashiya also returned to his true form as a Dark Army general and prepared to fight alongside them. The battle continued. Ashiya clashed with Orba, while Emi engaged Lucifer once again. At that moment, Mao stepped in and unleashed his overwhelming power as the Dark Lord. With a single instant attack, he obliterated Orba. Lucifer was terrified by Mao's immense strength. Mao turned to Emmy and asked what they should do with Lucifer. Emmy replied that he had to take responsibility for the destruction he caused. Mao sighed and said, then he should also take responsibility for making me late to work. Mao then struck Lucifer with a devastating blow, sending him flying and leaving his face swollen. Chi, who had witnessed everything, finally spoke up after everything settled. I know this is a little late, but who are you guys? Everyone had already reverted to their human forms again. Mao casually replied, I'm the Dark Lord from another world called Asura. Emmy introduced herself as the hero from the same world. She burst into laughter, saying, I always thought these kinds of things were just fantasy, but turns out they're real. Afterward, they started arguing again as usual. Lucifer then asked what they planned to do with him. Emmy asked if he was the one who had called her at work. Lucifer admitted that he was. She then asked how he had found her location. Lucifer revealed that he had discovered her whereabouts through the wallet she had lost. At that moment, Emmy's allies finally arrived in Japan through the magic portal. They were shocked to find the area frozen in place due to the magical barrier. Calling out to Emmy, they were overjoyed to see her again. Emmy was equally stunned to see Emeraba and Albert in Japan. They had finally found her. Albert and Emeraba were equally shocked by the human appearances of Satan and Shill. Emeraba then explained the current situation in Asula to Emmy, how the temple and everyone in it had fallen into madness. Orba wasn't the only traitor. Emmy and her allies then headed to Mao's home, waiting for him there. Emeraba and Albert were bewildered that this was where the Dark Lord was living. Meanwhile, Mao, Ashia, and Lucifer were still in the middle of the city. Mao decided to use his magic to restore everything to normal. Lucifer was bewildered by Mao's decision and asked, what happened to you? You're the Dark Lord. Destruction and chaos should be natural to you. Mao simply replied, that's true. Mao then cast his magic, restoring everything back to its original state before heading home. Later, Albert and Emeraba urged Emmy to return to their world with them immediately. Albert told Emmy that the Dark Lord's behavior had become strange. He wasn't even sure if he was truly the same Dark Lord anymore. Meanwhile, Mao and Chi returned to their jobs at the restaurant. Chi asked Mao if he planned on returning to his homeland. Mao responded that he wasn't going back. He explained that even if he wanted to return, he couldn't. He had used up half of his power just to restore the city. Mao then asked Chi if she wanted him to use magic to erase her memories of everything she had witnessed. Chi got angry and snapped at him, calling him an idiot. Mao and Ashia returned home after eating out. Lucifer asked why they were so late and complained that he was starving. Ashia scolded him, saying he was shameless and should be grateful to his lord Mao for even letting him stay in their home. Mao handed Lucifer a food container and told him he had brought him some food. Lucifer looked at it in disappointment and asked, what? You didn't go to the grilled meat place? Why didn't you bring me some too? Ashia retorted that they had already spent a lot on getting him a laptop, a mobile phone, and internet access, which were expensive enough. Lucifer grumbled that he couldn't exactly eat a computer. Ashia snapped at him, saying, then make yourself useful and gather all the information you can about magic in this world. He added that depending on his performance, he would improve the quality of his meals. Meanwhile, at work, Emmy was busy when she suddenly received an internet call from Lucifer. Mao was impressed and commented on how amazing it was. When Emmy saw the call, she was shocked and immediately answered, demanding to know why they were contacting her at work. Mao tried to calm her down, saying they were just testing out the internet. Emmy was even more shocked when she realized that Lucifer was still with them in this world. Before she could yell at them further, Mao quickly ended the call. Later, Mao went to work at the restaurant. She told him that he was impressive. Despite working there for less than a year, he had already been promoted to supervisor. Mao replied that he was just helping the manager and filling in for her when she was unavailable. She then asked if he could use his remaining magic to control humans. At that moment, Emmy appeared and declared that she would never allow that to happen. She greeted her warmly. Emmy ran up to Mao and told him that they needed to talk about something important. Mao dismissed her, saying he was busy with work. Emmy snapped, you're the one who called me at work first. She awkwardly tried to calm them down. Meanwhile, Lucifer was browsing the internet, looking for games to entertain himself. However, he stumbled upon an article about hidden places in Tokyo. At the same time, Ashia was searching for any information related to magic in this world through books. He found a reference to a location where monsters supposedly existed, but unfortunately, it was in Turkey. The travel costs to get there would be too expensive, equivalent to several months' worth of wages. Later, after Mao finished his shift, Emmy was still waiting for him. Mao asked her what she wanted to talk about. Emmy immediately confronted him about the prank call to her workplace. Mao explained that it was Lucifer's idea, he just wanted to test the internet. Emmy then asked why Lucifer was still in this world. Mao explained that the police were searching for him everywhere, so they had no choice but to keep him locked up at home. Emmy was surprised and asked how 3 men were managing to live in such a tiny apartment. Mao replied that they didn't have any better options. He added that he had exhausted more than half of his magic when restoring the city, which meant they couldn't return to Asula anytime soon. Emmy smirked and taunted him, saying she could return to Asula whenever she wanted. Mao then asked why she was still here if that was the case. Emmy replied, "I'm the hero. My duty is to keep an eye on the Dark Lord. As long as you're here, I have to watch over you." Afterward, Mao returned home. He found Lucifer passed out on the floor with a letter from their landlady beside him. Meanwhile, Ashiya was exhausted and sitting in the bathroom. After calming everyone down and making sure things returned to normal, Mao found out that their landlady had sent them a photo of herself at a beach in Hawaii. The problem was, the picture was terrible. Mao then turned to Lucifer and asked if he had gathered any information about magic in this world. Lucifer responded that he had found some interesting things. He showed them locations that were rumored to have magical energy, ancient sites like the pyramids and Stonehenge. He shared all the information he had collected. They decided to investigate the first location Lucifer mentioned, a school in Japan. However, when Mao arrived, he didn't sense any magical energy there. Ashiya suggested that it might be easier to investigate if they went inside the school. Mao, however, pointed out that it would be difficult for them to enter since they were strangers. Suddenly, Chi called out to Mao. She was inside one of the classrooms at the school. Mao realized that he had heard the name of this school before but had forgotten that it was Chi's school. Time passed, and later, at work, Mao met up with Chi and asked her about the forbidden classroom, the one rumored to have magical energy. He asked if she had ever heard of it or knew anything about it. She responded that the story was very famous at school. According to rumors, anyone who passed by the classroom could hear the sounds of monsters inside. She then asked Mao why he was interested in the topic. Mao explained that this might be connected to Asula, the world he came from, which was why he wanted to investigate it. That evening, Mao, Ashiya, and Chi sneaked into the school, with Chi leading them to the forbidden classroom. Chi told them that access to the area had been banned because, years ago, a student had entered and mysteriously disappeared forever. Mao asked Chi why she seemed so excited when they were in such a creepy place and why she wasn't afraid at all. Chi smiled and replied that she was happy because she was helping him. After all, he was always the one helping her. As for fear, she added, "I'm with the Dark Lord. What's left for me to be scared of?" At that moment, Lucifer called Mao and provided him with some new information about the forbidden classroom. He explained that the student who disappeared might have been transported to another world through a magical portal that had formed in that location. Ashiya was shocked that Lucifer had managed to gather all this information just from the internet. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise nearby. They tensed up as they heard approaching footsteps. Mao and Ashiya prepared for battle, ready to fight in case it was a monster. But to their surprise, the person approaching was none other than Emmy. She demanded to know what they were doing there so late at night. Mao explained why they had come to the school. Then he asked why she was there at this hour. Emmy replied that she had seen them sneaking into the school at night, so she decided to follow them. She then declared that she would be joining them from this moment onward. However, as she spoke, she suddenly realized that Mao, Ashiya, and Chi had left her behind without her noticing. Furious, Emmy ran around the school, trying to catch up with them. Meanwhile, the group hid inside the biology lab. The moment Emmy entered the room, she mistook a human anatomy model for a monster and smashed it to pieces. At that moment, Mao jumped out and yelled at her, "That's not a monster, you idiot. It's an anatomical model of the human body." As usual, they started arguing again. At the same time, an ominous figure from the temple in Asula was watching them from the shadows. The group then proceeded toward the forbidden classroom together. The building it was in was very old, and the classroom was located on the 3rd floor. It turned out that the exact location they were looking for was where the mysterious figure had been watching them. They entered the old building and approached the classroom. Chi mentioned that the planks sealing the door had never been there before. Ashiya then noticed that the door was already unlocked. The lock had fallen to the floor. The group was puzzled. Mao removed the planks, and they entered the classroom. Inside, they were shocked to find fresh food remains, indicating that someone had been here recently. At that moment, Lucifer called Mao and asked if they had reached the forbidden classroom. Mao confirmed that they had. Lucifer then asked if they had seen anything strange, like a handheld gaming console. Mao glanced around and saw one on the floor. He picked it up and replied, "Yeah, we found it." "Why?" Lucifer sighed in relief and said, "Thank goodness. I knew I left it there." Mao was furious. "What do you mean? This is how you and Orba arrived in Japan?" Lucifer casually admitted, "Yeah." "Oh, wait, didn't I tell you? Orba and I lived here for a while when we first got to Japan." Mao realized that Lucifer had only led them here because he wanted them to retrieve his game console. He was beyond frustrated. On their way out of the old building, Chi noticed a wrapped food item lying on the ground, but they ignored it and returned home. The following evening, Mao headed to work. When he arrived home later, he found a girl waiting outside his apartment. The moment he spoke to her, she fell down the stairs and lost consciousness. The next morning, the girl who had fainted rang Mao's doorbell. She apologized for intruding on them and introduced herself as Suzuno. She had just moved into the apartment next to theirs. She also apologized for bothering them the previous day and offered them a gift as a token of gratitude. Mao accepted the gift, introduced himself, and thanked her. However, he was surprised to find that the box was incredibly heavy despite how easily Suzuno had been carrying it. Ashiya came out as well, introduced himself, and told her that he was an old friend of Mao. Suzuno responded that she had already heard about them. She also mentioned that she hadn't met the landlady since she arrived, but in the letter from the landlady, she had been told that she could rely on them if she needed any help. She was then surprised to see Lucifer there as well, and Mao introduced him to her. After that, Suzuno excused herself and returned to her room. Meanwhile, Emi received a magical communication from Emeraba in Asula. Emeraba had also sent her magic potions to help her regain her full strength. To avoid suspicion from the people in Japan, the potions were disguised as vitamins. Emeraba informed Emi that the maximum dosage was 2 potions per day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. After that, Emeraba bid her farewell and ended the call. The next day, Emi was once again watching Mao from a distance, waiting to see any suspicious movement from him. As she stood in the street, she kept drinking water due to the heat. To her surprise, she saw Suzuno inside Mao's apartment, spending time with Lucifer. Suzuno was teaching him how to do household chores and how to properly dry laundry. Emi immediately became suspicious. Who was this girl? She jumped to conclusions, assuming Suzuno was a new subordinate of the Dark Lord's army. Determined to uncover the truth, Emi snuck into the building and eavesdropped on them. Inside, Suzuno was showing Lucifer how to prepare instant noodles. She told him that if he wanted to be helpful to his friends, he should at least contribute by taking care of household chores. Meanwhile, Ashiya was lying on the floor, exhausted from the heat. He muttered, "Suzuno, please tell that useless guy to actually listen for once. He never follows instructions." At that moment, Suzuno decided to return to her apartment to get some ingredients to help them cook a proper meal. Emi panicked and quickly ran to hide so that Suzuno wouldn't catch her. However, as usual, she tripped on the stairs and was about to fall, only to be caught at the last second by Mao. They immediately started arguing, as always. Eventually, they all entered the apartment. Suzuno apologized to Emi, saying that she had startled her by opening the door so suddenly. Emi replied that it was her own fault for losing her balance. After that, Suzuno formally introduced herself to Emi. They all had a meal together, and as expected, Mao and Emi ended up arguing again. Time passed, but Emi continued keeping a close watch on Mao. Later, at the restaurant, Mao's manager informed him that she would be away for a while. During that time, he would be in charge of everything until she returned. She told him that if anything serious happened, he could call her at any time. That evening, Emi went shopping at the supermarket. Suddenly, she was attacked by a mysterious masked figure who possessed incredibly strong magical power. However, just as things were about to escalate, the store owner appeared, causing the attacker to flee. The store owner quickly called the police and helped Emi inside so that she could recover. The next day, Emi and Chi went to Mao's apartment. Chi was shocked when Suzuno opened the door for them. Inside, Suzuno was preparing a meal for everyone. Chi was amazed by Suzuno's incredible cooking skills. Everyone sat down to eat. Emi asked Suzuno about her job. Suzuno replied that she had worked in cooking before, but currently, she wasn't working at all. However, she didn't mind taking any job that could cover her basic daily needs. Mao immediately suggested, "Then you should work with us at the restaurant. Since Chi is already there, she can help train you." He then turned to Chi and asked if she agreed. Chi blushed slightly but agreed without hesitation. Suzuno thanked Mao and told him she would consider his suggestion as one of her options. Ashiya then said that while they had solved the job issue, there was still another problem: Suzuno's traditional Japanese clothing. Suzuno admitted that she didn't own many suitable clothes or proper shoes. Emi was stunned. "Wait, you mean you only have these traditional outfits?" She then suggested that after work, she would take Suzuno shopping for new clothes. Later, Mao walked Chi home. On the way, he ran into Suzuno, who was heading out to meet Emi as they had planned. Mao offered to escort her to the subway station. When Suzuno finally arrived, Emi was waiting for her. This was Suzuno's first time riding the subway, and she was visibly shocked by it. Emi, confused, asked, "Wait, then how did you get from Sasasuka to here?" Suzuno calmly replied, "I used the portal." Emi froze. "You just said portal. Wait, are you from Asula too?" Suzuno blinked at her. "You're just realizing this now?" Both of them were completely shocked. Emi shouted, "You never mentioned anything about this before. How was I supposed to know?" It was revealed that Suzuno was from the temple in Asula. She had come to this world to investigate the situation and to find out what Mao, the Dark Lord, was doing here. She also wanted to confirm whether the rumors were true, that the hero Emilia was secretly cooperating with the Dark Lord. Suzuno informed Emi about these rumors. Emi clarified that she had only cooperated with him once, to save the people of the city from General Lucifer's attack. Emi then asked if Suzuno was the masked person who had attacked her at the supermarket the night before. Suzuno was confused. Emi explained that someone from Asura had attacked her the previous night. The masked attacker had also been able to neutralize her sacred sword. Suzuno assured Emi that she had nothing to do with that attack. Emi then asked who Suzuno really was and why she was disguised and living near the Dark Lord. Suzuno finally revealed her true identity. Her real name was Crestia, and she was the commander of the temple's investigation committee. She then asked Emi, "Do you still have the will to kill the Dark Lord?" Emi glanced at the clock. Before Suzuno could continue, Emi interrupted, saying she had to go to work and couldn't be late. She told Suzuno that once she finished work, they could talk freely about the situation. The two of them wandered around the city. Suzuno was amazed by the technology of this world. Emi was surprised by Suzuno's reactions to modern things. They sat down at a cafe, where Emi asked Suzuno what she had learned since arriving in Japan. Suzuno replied, "I learned everything about Japanese customs, through historical drama shows." They then returned to the main topic, the strange situation they were in. Emi asked why the commander of the temple's investigation committee was living so close to the Dark Lord. Suzuno explained that she was looking for any clues about Orba. The only lead they had was the Dark Lord's location, so she had been observing him for a while. She knew that sooner or later, the hero would appear. Emi then asked, "Why did you want to meet me in the first place?" Suzuno explained that Orba's actions had gone against the temple's orders. She hoped that Emi would become her ally in this world. She wanted them to defeat the Dark Lord together and return to Asula. However, Emi rejected the offer. She said that she couldn't trust Suzuno that easily. After all, Orba had collaborated with Lucifer and had tried to kill everyone in the city, just to get rid of both the hero and the Dark Lord. Even Emeraba and Albert had witnessed everything. After their conversation, Emi helped Suzuno adjust to this world. She gave her magazines that would help her learn about modern fashion and how to blend into society. Then, Emi left for work. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Mao and the staff were struggling. A new rival restaurant had opened right across from them, and all the customers were going there instead. Mao's manager told him to do whatever it took to outperform the rival restaurant and bring back their customers. Otherwise, she warned that the management would transfer them to one of the restaurant's frozen region branches. Time passed. A man entered the restaurant and asked for the manager. Mao informed him that the manager wasn't there today, but he could help him if needed. The man asked, "You're Mao, aren't you? I've heard a lot of rumors about you lately." He then said, "You're quite an extraordinary person." Mao thanked him for the compliment. The man then introduced himself. It turned out that he was the owner of the rival restaurant. Meanwhile, Emi and Rika left their office after work. Outside, they ran into Suzuno. Suzuno had gone shopping, as Emi had suggested, and had bought new clothes. She proudly showed Emi her new phone as well. Rika asked Emi about Suzuno. Emi casually said, "She's a new friend." Suzuno then suggested that they go eat at Mao's restaurant. As always, Rika was excited about the idea. Without hesitation, she agreed. Since she had no choice, Emi was forced to go with them. At the same time, Mao and Chi were watching the rival restaurant. The place was packed with customers. Meanwhile, their own restaurant was completely empty. Both of them were extremely frustrated by the situation. Emi, Rika, and Suzuno arrived at Mao's restaurant, but they noticed that it was completely empty. Rika then took them to the competing restaurant, where they bought food. As they sat down, Rika asked Emi about Mao. Emi hesitated, thinking to herself that the situation was simple. She was the hero, and Mao was the Dark Lord. But, of course, she couldn't reveal that secret to Rika. As they ate, Suzuno mentioned that all she knew about Mao was that he had dragged her into her new home. Emi responded by saying that the only thing she felt toward Mao was the need to kill him as soon as possible. Rika, confused, said, "Don't exaggerate, Emi. He's your friend, after all." They continued talking about Mao, with Emi insulting him as usual. However, this time, she went a little too far. Unfortunately for her, Ashiya happened to be nearby. Hearing her insults, he snapped and yelled at her. Emi was startled to see him and asked, "What are you doing here?" Meanwhile, back at Mao's restaurant, he stood near the entrance, watching the rival restaurant closely. He was waiting for Ashiya to return and was confused about why he was taking so long. A flashback showed that Mao had actually sent Ashiya to buy fried chicken from the rival restaurant. He wanted to analyze their recipe and figure out what made their food so much better. Returning to the present, Mao was still waiting inside the restaurant. She noticed that Mao seemed nervous. She asked him why, mentioning that they had already cleaned the restaurant and had nothing else to do. Mao glanced at the other employees. He noticed that everyone's morale was low. Not a single customer had come all day. And yet, Outside, the streets were packed with people because of the festival. Chi suggested that they go outside and shout promotions to attract customers. Mao liked the idea but decided to wait until Ashiya returned. At the same time, he continued thinking of other ways to steal customers from the rival restaurant. He was frustrated because he couldn't come up with any good ideas. His staff tried to cheer him up, telling him that he wasn't responsible for everything, just because he was the supervisor. Mao calmed down slightly. Still feeling lost, he simply told everyone to clean the windows. Back at the rival restaurant, Emmy demanded to know why Ashiya was there. Ashiya told her that he had been there for a while and had planned to stay hidden. However, he couldn't stand her disgusting insults toward Lord Mao, which was why he had revealed himself. Emmy dismissed that and said it wasn't important right now, she needed his help. Ashiya coldly replied, "I see no reason to help you." Emmy then revealed that she already knew why he was there. He was investigating the rival restaurant's ingredients. She offered to buy him anything he wanted if he helped her. Ashiya liked the deal and agreed to sit with them. Rika, as usual, was completely clueless. She asked, "Wait, are you friends too?" Ashiya snapped, "Of course not." Then he apologized to Rika for his reaction and introduced himself properly. Rika then realized that he was Suzuno's neighbor. She welcomed him and introduced herself as Rika, one of Emi's co-workers. Then, she asked, "Are you the one living with Mao?" Ashiya was surprised. "You know Mao?" Rika admitted that she didn't know him personally but was curious to learn more about him. She then asked, "Why does Emi try to keep every girl away from Mao?" Ashiya thought for a moment before answering. Then he suddenly said, "Mao and I used to run a company together." Both Emi and Suzuno were stunned. "You're making this up," Emi exclaimed. Even Rika was shocked. She asked, "Wait, how old are you to be running a company?" Ashiya continued his story, claiming that their company specialized in real estate and employment agencies. Recently, they had been handling construction projects. Their company's name was Mao. Emi and Suzuno stared at him in disbelief. Rika was even more surprised. "So Emi worked in construction too?" Ashiya nodded and expanded the story. He claimed that Emi used to work for their rival company. Because of the intense competition between her and Mao, and since Emi always won contracts, Mao's company went bankrupt. Over time, he and Mao settled in Sasuzuka. Then, after about a year, they randomly ran into Emi again. She had apparently felt sorry for them, which was why she kept visiting them. Rika finally understood the relationship between Mao and Emi. Meanwhile, Ashiya had a realization. He understood that Mao had never abandoned his dream of being a successful businessman. Even now, working in a small restaurant, he was learning management skills. The proof of Mao's determination was the fact that he had been promoted to supervisor in less than a year. Rika decided that she needed to meet Mao immediately. Since Mao was a hard-working businessman, she figured he might be useful to her family in the future. After all, her family owned a large company and multiple factories. She suggested they go visit Mao. However, Emi felt annoyed. Still, she paid the bill for their meal before heading to Mao's restaurant. At the cash register, she encountered the restaurant manager and found him extremely strange. Meanwhile, Ashiya returned to Mao and reported all the information he had gathered. He then took the food to Lucifer and went home. Back at Mao's restaurant, Rika, Emi, and Suzuno sat at a table. Mao came over to take their orders. Rika examined him and said, "You're completely different from what I imagined." She then teased him, saying, "Since you became the supervisor, this place has turned into a ghost town." Mao snapped at her for insulting the restaurant. Rika smirked and replied, "How can you talk to customers like that? I should report you to the management." Mao sighed and said, "Even customers should follow the rules." Then, he asked her directly, "Who are you?" Rika formally introduced herself. "My name is Rika. I'm Emi's co-worker." She added that she had heard a few things about him from Ashiya, Emi, and Suzuno. Mao was confused. Even Ashiya said something. "What exactly did you hear?" Rika replied, "Well, everyone has different opinions about you. That's why I came to see for myself." At that moment, Chi arrived and served them their food. She warmly greeted them. Rika was impressed by Chi and called her adorable. Then, Rika suddenly suggested an idea to Mao. She told him to distribute flyers in the streets to attract more customers. Mao loved the idea. He and his staff immediately started handing out flyers. Unfortunately, the plan failed. He then tried another approach, giving out free burger samples in the streets. That also failed. Finally, Mao had a new idea. He decided to set up a Christmas tree at the restaurant entrance to attract customers. He went ahead with the plan. This time, it worked. The restaurant became crowded with customers again. Over time, the restaurant's sales returned to normal. While working, Mao was lost in thought. Suddenly, his manager appeared behind him, startling him. She reassured him and informed him that he needed to prepare because he would be sent to the Fukushima branch. Mao was shocked and asked why, especially since they had already met their monthly target as usual. The manager explained that the manager of the Fukushima branch had requested to borrow her best employee to help during their peak period. Since Mao was her top employee, she had recommended him. Mao felt relieved. The manager also informed him that his transportation expenses would be covered by the restaurant. Excited, Mao immediately agreed. Chi, overhearing this, wanted to go with him. However, the manager declined, saying that only Mao was needed. That evening, Mao returned home and told Ashiya that he would be going to Fukushima for work tomorrow. They sat down for dinner. Mao was surprised by how much Ashiya was eating, considering he was supposed to be sick. Ashiya explained that if they didn't finish all the food that night, it would expire, so he had to eat it all. He also reassured Mao that he was feeling better. At that moment, Lucifer mentioned that a new haunted house attraction was opening tomorrow at Fukushima Park. Additionally, there would also be a grand reptile exhibit opening at the same time. Lucifer explained that they had to go to the haunted house to absorb magical energy by feeding off people's fear. Ashiya immediately decided to go with Mao to Fukushima the next day. Meanwhile, Chi called Emi and invited her to the grand reptile exhibit. Emi agreed since she was free all day. Chi was thrilled that Emi accepted and thanked her. They planned to meet up at the park. Shortly after, Suzuno called Emi. She informed Emi that Mao was planning to gather magic from the haunted house and the reptile park in Fukushima. Emi responded that she had already heard that Mao was going there to help out at another restaurant branch. Suzuno was surprised that Emi already knew this. Emi explained that she had found out from Chi and that they would be going there tomorrow as well. Emi then asked how Mao planned to gather magic from an amusement park. Suzuno sighed and said, "You're as dumb as ever. I'll explain when I see you." She then decided to join them at the park. The next morning, Mao arrived at the new restaurant branch. He introduced himself to the staff and the manager. The branch manager told him that Kasaki, his own manager, had spoken very highly of him. She informed him that today would be extremely busy, so everyone had to give their best effort. Meanwhile, Chi was waiting for Emi at the park. Emi and Suzuno arrived soon after. Emi apologized for being late. They then changed into swimsuits and headed out to enjoy the attractions. Back at the restaurant, Mao performed his job flawlessly. The manager was very impressed with his skills. At that moment, he was shocked to see Chi approaching the restaurant. She greeted him and ordered 3 large hamburgers. While waiting for her order, they chatted for a bit. Then, to Mao's surprise, Emi and Suzuno joined Chi. Mao immediately asked Emi, "What are you doing here?" Emi replied, "Why do you care? I work hard all week, so I deserve to spend my day off wherever I want." Suzuno added that she was here to study human society since it was still unfamiliar to her. Mao pretended to believe them and said, "Alright, sure." Meanwhile, Ashiya was still at home. His stomach was in terrible pain. Lucifer casually told him that his pain was probably from eating too much instant noodles, just like Mao had warned him. He suggested that Ashiya take some medicine. However, Ashiya refused, saying, "It's just a minor stomach ache." But before he could even finish his sentence, the pain intensified, and he rushed to the bathroom. Feeling frustrated, Ashiya regretted not being able to help Mao gather magical energy as they had planned. Lucifer tried to comfort him, telling him to rest and take care of himself first. Back at the park, Emi, Chi, and Suzuno sat down to eat their food. Emi commented on how crowded the place was. Chi explained that it was because of the new attractions that had just opened. Suzuno asked, "Do you mean the haunted house?" Chi nodded. "Yeah, they say it's really good." Emi then asked if they wanted to try it. Suzuno remembered what Mao and the others had said about the haunted house being used to collect magical energy. She immediately agreed. "Yes, we definitely have to go." They entered the haunted house. It was dark, eerie, and completely silent. Chi, unlike the others, was tense and visibly nervous. Suzuno and Emi, on the other hand, remained calm. However, as they walked further inside, the lights flickered strangely, making Chi even more anxious. She was now on edge. Emi, curious, decided to explore deeper into the haunted house. Chi hesitated but followed them anyway. Suddenly, Chi saw a severed head hanging outside a window, staring at them. She panicked and screamed in terror. Without hesitation, she ran for her life, sprinting ahead of both Emi and Suzuno. Now, Emi and Suzuno were left searching for her. As they moved deeper into the haunted house, the atmosphere became more terrifying, to the point that even Emi, the hero who fought against terrifying monsters, began to feel scared. They continued moving forward and came across a little girl crying in the middle of the path. Suzuno approached her and gently asked, "Why are you crying?" The girl repeated, "My mom left me and walked away." Suzuno asked if she wanted to come with them, but the girl kept repeating the same phrase, "My mom left me and walked away." The situation felt strange. Both Emi and Suzuno started feeling uneasy. Then, suddenly, the girl's head twisted 180 degrees, and she stared at them with lifeless eyes. She was a ghost. At the same time, another ghost appeared above them. Terrified, they screamed and ran for their lives. Outside the haunted house, Emi, Suzuno, and Chi sat on a bench in the park, still trying to process what they had just experienced. They couldn't believe that something this terrifying actually existed in this world. After calming down, they decided to go to the Grand Reptile exhibit. However, they were also nervous about entering that place. Emi asked Chi, "Are you sure you want to go in?" Chi, still a little shaken, took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, I'll go with you." Suzuno then turned to Emi and smirked. "Are you scared and just using Chi as an excuse?" Emi immediately snapped, "Scared? Who? Me? I'm the hero. I just don't like them, that's all." With that, they entered the reptile house. Inside, they saw a variety of reptiles, including crocodiles and other rare species. Meanwhile, Mao was still working hard at the restaurant. He was also in charge of delivering orders outside the restaurant. At one point, he went to deliver food to the circus workers. While they were distracted by their meal, a monkey managed to escape from its enclosure. Unfortunately, the monkey wandered into the reptile exhibit. To make matters worse, the monkey found the zookeeper's key, which had fallen nearby. Back at the reptile exhibit, Emi, Suzuno, and Chi were enjoying their time and admiring the different reptiles. At that moment, the escaped monkey appeared in front of them. They were surprised to see it there. Feeling bad for it, they decided to take it with them so they could return it to its rightful place. Meanwhile, Mao was leaving the circus when he noticed the workers frantically searching for something. When he asked what was wrong, they told him they couldn't find their monkey anywhere. Mao was even more surprised when he learned that the monkey had the same name as him. The workers expanded their search to the park, hoping to find it. Back at the lost and found section, Emi, Suzuno, and Chi were about to return the monkey. However, just then, the monkey heard its owner calling out. It immediately jumped off Chi's shoulder and ran toward its owner. At that moment, Mao arrived with the monkey's owner. The owner thanked Emi and the others for their help. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. Because of the monkey's mischief, it had accidentally unlocked the crocodile cages. The crocodiles escaped. At the same time, Emi, Suzuno, and Chi were relaxing in the pool, having fun. They had no idea that crocodiles were swimming underneath them. No one had noticed them yet. Then, one of the crocodiles bumped into a girl. She turned around, saw it, and screamed in terror. Panic broke out instantly. People rushed out of the pool, running for their lives. The crocodiles began chasing them. An emergency evacuation was immediately announced at the park. As they were escaping, Chi tripped and fell due to the crowd's chaos. Emi quickly helped her get up. At the same time, Mao arrived at the scene. He stepped forward and faced the rampaging crocodiles. Using his powerful magic, he calmed all the crocodiles at once and took control of them. He successfully ended the crisis. Emi, Chi, and Suzuno watched in shock at Mao's incredible power. Suzuno, feeling uneasy, thought to herself, why didn't Mao take advantage of this situation? He could have used the chaos to spread more fear and gather even more magical energy. She was confused. What happened to the Dark Lord Satan? Later that evening, Mao finished his shift. The manager praised him, saying that he had done an outstanding job. Mao thanked her. Afterward, he met up with Emi, Chi, and Suzuno to say goodbye. He told them that he still had to clean up, so they could go ahead without him. The group took the subway home. When they reached their stop, Suzuno got off first and walked alone toward her apartment. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appeared in front of her. He radiated powerful magic and was clearly from Asura. Without warning, he unfolded his wings in front of her. Suzuno was shocked, but the moment she turned around, the man vanished into thin air. The next morning, Mao sat down for breakfast. Lucifer asked him, "Did you manage to gather any magical energy yesterday?" Mao replied, "Yeah, I collected a huge amount, but I used it all." Meanwhile, Ashiya was still sick. Every few minutes, he ran to the bathroom. The doorbell rang. A package had arrived for Lucifer. Lucifer rushed to get up before anyone else could take it. He didn't want anyone complaining about his purchases again. However, he collapsed the moment he stood up. His legs had gone numb from sitting in front of the laptop for too long. Mao ended up receiving the package instead. Ashiya, still weak, was furious when he saw it. "What is this? When did you buy something without me noticing?" Before Lucifer could answer, Ashiya suddenly felt sick again. He rushed to the bathroom, leaving Lucifer to escape the interrogation. Ashiya remained sick all day and apologized to Mao for not even being able to make dinner that night. Mao told him not to worry and that he would cook dinner himself. When Mao opened the fridge, the only thing left was rice. So, he decided to make rice with fried eggs. Just then, the doorbell rang again. It was the delivery man. Ashiya yelled at Lucifer, "What did you order this time, you idiot?" Lucifer defended himself. "I have nothing to do with it this time. If it was my package, I would have received it earlier, before you even left the house." Mao went to open the door. It turned out that the package was from the landlord. Along with the package was a letter from her saying she had found many interesting things in Hawaii. When Mao looked around, he realized that their entire house was now filled with packages. The landlord had sent them a ton of goods and asked Mao to sell them at the upcoming summer bazaar. Meanwhile, Suzuno was deep in thought, still thinking about the mysterious man who had appeared before her. It was revealed that she had met him again. He had asked her, "You're from the church, aren't you? You're Bell, the executioner, correct?" The scene then shifted to the past. In Asula, a group of people was discussing how a local shopkeeper had disappeared recently. It turned out that this man had been against the church. At that moment, Suzuno, disguised in a cloak, was walking through the streets, listening to their conversation. It was revealed that the missing man had actually been killed by Suzuno, along with the rest of his rebel group who had plotted against the church. It was then confirmed that Suzuno was an assassin working for the church. She was known as an inquisitor. After completing her mission, she returned to meet her superior, who praised her for executing her duty. He handed her a handkerchief to wipe the blood off her hands. Then, he gave her a new mission, the very reason she had come to this new world, Japan. Back in the present, Suzuno looked down at the mission document in her hands. She appeared deeply troubled. The scene shifted to Emi at work. She told Rika that she had gone to Fushima Park the day before. Rika asked, "Who did you go with?" Emi replied, "I went with Suzuno and Chi, and we also ran into Mao while he was working there." The next morning, Chi visited Mao's house, but she was shocked to find it completely filled with boxes. There were so many that she could barely get through the door. She had to push her way inside. Mao explained that the landlord had sent all these things for them to sell at the summer bazaar in the neighborhood. Since Ashiya was still sick and unable to move, he had asked Chi to help Mao. Suddenly, Lucifer informed them that Emi was also in the building. Mao was surprised and asked how he knew. Lucifer smugly explained, "I placed a tracking device on her last time she was here." Mao was horrified. He yelled at him, "She'll kill you if she finds out you're tracking her." Mao hurried to open the door, still yelling, only to realize that Emi was standing in front of Suzuno's apartment, not his. Later, they all gathered at Mao's place. Mao asked Emi and Suzuno to help him organize all the goods for the bazaar. Lucifer tried to sneak away, using the excuse that he wasn't supposed to leave the house. But Mao grabbed him by the collar and forced him to help too. They began sorting through the goods. Among them, they found a large amount of food, sweets, and drinks. There was another note from the landlord, stating that they could keep all the food and drinks. They brought out some cups to try the new drinks. However, Chi noticed that there were only 5 cups. Mao casually said, "It's fine. Lucifer doesn't need one." Meanwhile, Suzuno still seemed distracted ever since her encounter with the mysterious man. As the evening fell, they finally finished setting up for the bazaar. Mao thanked them all for their help. Chi told him it wasn't a big deal. She actually enjoyed helping out because it reminded her of the school festival. Emi also commented that she liked festivals, especially the preparations leading up to them. However, Mao and Chi noticed that Suzuno was unusually quiet. Chi asked, "Suzuno, are you okay?" Suzuno replied that she was fine but had been thinking about how many years had passed since she last enjoyed a festival. After saying their goodbyes, Mao headed to work. Suddenly, a white feather appeared in front of Suzuno. She immediately recognized it. It was a summon from the mysterious man from the church. She went to meet him. He scolded her, saying, "Why are you wasting time preparing for a festival? Your mission is to kill the Dark Lord before he regains his power." He questioned why she was hesitating. After all, she had killed thousands of people before without hesitation. At that moment, Suzuno remembered all the bloody missions she had carried out under the church's orders. It was then revealed that her current mission was to assassinate the Dark Lord, Mao. Meanwhile, Emi and Chi found Suzuno standing alone and asked her what she was doing. Suzuno, visibly troubled, turned to Emi and said firmly, "I have to kill Mao, the Dark Lord." She was shocked. She realized that Suzuno also knew the truth about Mao. They began arguing about whether Mao should be killed or not. In the end, Emi ended the argument, saying, "The world is safe now. Mao hasn't done anything. We won't act against him." Hearing this, Suzuno walked away silently. Suddenly, the mysterious man from the church appeared. He attacked Emi and Chi. Emi quickly dodged the attack and protected Chi. She was shocked to see the attacker. It was the manager of the rival restaurant across from Mao's store. The man launched another attack. Emi kept dodging his attacks. Chi quickly called Mao for help. The man then used his magic power to disable Emi's sacred sword. She was stunned and asked him how he did that. He explained that he used suppression magic to nullify her sword's power. He had come to this world specifically to eliminate her. At that moment, he revealed his true form. Then, he struck Emi with a powerful blow, leaving her badly injured. She noticed that Suzuno was still standing nearby. She asked her, "Are you with us, or are you siding with Orba, the traitor?" Suzuno hesitated. She then knocked Chi unconscious and apologized to her. Meanwhile, Mao noticed several missed calls from Chi. Right after that, Chi's mother called him. She thanked him for always looking after Chi and then asked if he knew where she was because she hadn't come home yet. Mao quickly called Lucifer and asked if Chi was at their house. Lucifer replied that she wasn't. Lucifer then revealed something shocking. He had investigated the rival restaurant manager and found that he wasn't even listed in the employee database. Someone had tampered with the records. Mao immediately became suspicious. He demanded that Lucifer send him Emmy's location through the tracker. Lucifer informed him that Emmy was moving strangely, walking in a straight line over rooftops, all heading towards City Hall. Without hesitation, Mao rushed out to save Emmy and Chi. The scene shifted to Orba. He was unconscious in a hospital bed, but suddenly, he opened his eyes. Ashiya ended up at the same hospital. He was worried about the cost of the 4 drip they had put him on. A nurse arrived to check on him and asked how he was feeling. Instead of answering, he immediately asked about the cost, wondering if his insurance would cover it. The nurse reassured him that he wouldn't have to pay anything and told him she would put another 4 drip for him. Hearing this, Ashiya immediately jumped up, saying, "No need, I'm totally fine." As he walked through the hospital corridor, he suddenly saw a police officer unconscious on the floor. Confused, he turned around, only to be struck by Orba with full force, slamming him into the wall. Orba stole Ashiya's ID, left him lying on the ground, and walked away. Meanwhile, Mao was speeding through the streets on his bicycle, heading toward Chi and Emmy to rescue them. At that moment, the mysterious church agent had suspended Emmy in midair using his magic, torturing her with magic blasts. Suzuno stood nearby, silent, while Chi was still unconscious. The man told Emmy that he would continue torturing her until she handed over the sacred sword. Emmy, gritting her teeth in pain, responded, "The sword refuses to manifest. That's why I can't give it to you." She added, "The sword is rejecting you. That's why it won't appear." Then, she pleaded, "She has nothing to do with this. Let her go." The man refused, saying, "She is actually very important to us. She's a human who knows the true identity of the Dark Lord. We plan to use her in our research on human bodies adapting to the Dark Lord's power." He continued torturing Emmy mercilessly. By this time, Mao had nearly reached them, but he was stopped by a magical barrier that the agent had set up. The man then ordered Suzuno to go fight Mao and kill him. Without hesitation, Suzuno rushed toward Mao and attacked him. Mao dodged her strikes, completely shocked that she was attacking him. He asked, "Why are you doing this?" They kept fighting, with Mao dodging her attacks until she finally managed to land a hit on him, sending him flying. But Suzuno suddenly stopped, realizing that Mao wasn't even fighting back. Mao looked at her and asked, "Are you going to kill me or not?" He then added, "Chi is waiting for me, so if you're not going to kill me, get out of my way." He then demanded to know who the enemy was. Suzuno explained that the man was from the church and that his power increased the closer he was to the moon. Mao immediately took off, rushing to Emmy and Chi. Meanwhile, Orba arrived at Mao's apartment and knocked on the door. Lucifer, assuming it was Ashiya, opened the door only to be shocked when he saw Orba standing there. Orba demanded that Lucifer fulfill their old agreement. Back at the rooftop, the church agent continued torturing Emmy. He mocked her, saying, "I'm surprised your sword hasn't abandoned you despite all this pain." Then, he stepped forward and said, "If the sword won't come out on its own, I'll just rip it from your body myself." Just as he reached for Emmy, Chi suddenly woke up and shouted at him, calling him a creep. She and Emmy started cursing at him. Frustrated, the man released a surge of magic to scare them into silence. Emmy, however, spoke up defiantly, "If you dare lay a finger on Chi, I will make you regret it." He smirked and said, "I admire your bravery, but what can you do in your condition?" Emmy replied, "I won't be the one making you regret it. The Dark Lord won't allow you to do this." The man laughed mockingly, saying, "So now the hero is relying on the Dark Lord?" Emmy continued, "Chi is a crew member at Mao's restaurant. Right now, he's the acting manager. If he finds out one of his employees is in danger, he'll wipe you out immediately." The man scoffed, "Do you really think the Dark Lord is responsible and dedicated in this world?" At that moment, Mao finally reached the rooftop, panting from exhaustion. He quickly checked on Emmy and Chi, relieved that they were still alive. The agent, looking at Mao, smirked, "I'm actually surprised you showed up to save them." Mao glared at him and replied, "And I wasn't expecting the short, lousy manager from that pathetic restaurant to be an agent of the church." Then, he yelled at him for terrifying Chi, saying, "She's my junior at work. It's my responsibility to protect her." The agent laughed, mocking Mao, "And what exactly can you do in that weak human body of yours?" He then attacked Mao with just a flick of his fingers, sending him flying. He unleashed a barrage of magical blasts, knocking Mao around the rooftop. Meanwhile, Orba stood on top of a building, drinking a magical potion to replenish his power. He activated a massive magical circle, preparing to destroy the entire area. Suzuno noticed the strange activity. Suddenly, Lucifer appeared beside her and said, "That explosion is going to spread terror through the entire city." And fear Fear creates magic power. Then, Orba used his magic to bring the moon unnaturally close to Earth, making it appear huge in the sky. The church agent cheered, feeling his power increase immensely. Mao, trying to attack, was restrained by stones and launched into the air. The agent sneered, "At this point, no one can stop me." Terror spread through the city as people panicked, staring at the enormous moon. At that moment, Ashiya suddenly woke up. The overflow of magical energy restored his true form. Back at the rooftop, Mao was surrounded by an overwhelming aura of magic. The agent, stunned, had no idea what was happening. Emi and Chi felt relieved, seeing Mao return to his true form, brimming with power. However, Chi collapsed from the overwhelming magic. Suzuno quickly used her own magic to stabilize her. She yelled at Mao, "Control your magic, or you'll kill Chi." Mao immediately apologized and restrained his power. Then, he freed Emi from her restraints and told Suzuno, "Take care of them." Meanwhile, Orba and Lucifer watched from a distance. Lucifer asked Orba for Emi's bag. Confused, Orba handed it to him and asked, "What do you need this for?" Lucifer smirked, "To return it to Emi later, or else she'll kill me." Realizing he had been tricked, Orba furiously tried to attack Lucifer. But Lucifer was faster, striking Orba down instantly. Suddenly, the moon returned to normal. The church agent was horrified. Mao looked at him and said, "I'll give you two options. 1, you run away with your tail between your legs. 2, you act like a man and fight me properly." The agent arrogantly chose to fight. They clashed fiercely, but Mao completely overpowered him. Desperate, the agent tried to grab Chi as a hostage. However, Mao had disguised himself as Chi and delivered a devastating final blow. He drew his blade and finished off the agent. After the battle, Mao was relieved to have regained his power. However, he sighed, "And now, I have to waste all of it fixing this world again." At that moment, Ashiya arrived. He had gone back home first to grab their cloaks. Mao suddenly panicked, realizing he left his work uniform behind and was late for his shift. On the evening of the following day, Chi went to the restaurant and told Mao that she had a dream of him saying goodbye and returning to Isla. Mao replied, saying that it was impossible for him to return to Isla now since he didn't have enough magical power. He explained that he was completely exhausted from using his magic the previous day to restore the city to its original state. At that moment, the manager arrived and asked Mao why he had run away from work yesterday while holding a broom. Suddenly, Suzuno stepped in and explained that Mao had done so to save them. She detailed everything that had happened. Meanwhile, Lucifer was keeping an eye on Suzuno as well and informed Ashiya that she had gone to Mao's restaurant. Ashiya scolded him, saying that it was wrong to spy on Emi and Suzuno like that. Back at the restaurant, Suzuno introduced herself to the manager and explained what had happened, that she and Chi had been returning home late when a dangerous man confronted them, and Mao had rushed in to help. Chi also confirmed the story. The manager was shocked and asked if Mao had really fought off a dangerous man with a mop. Mao replied confidently that the man had indeed been very dangerous. Suddenly, another employee rushed in and informed the manager that there was a frozen man in the storage freezer. Chi and Suzuno were startled to see that the frozen man was the same mysterious church agent whom Mao had defeated the night before. The man woke up and saw the manager standing before him, who asked if he was alright. As usual, the man behaved strangely, confusing the manager, who then asked Mao who he was. Mao casually replied that he was from their rival restaurant. The following morning, Emi had a dream in which she was at work, and Mao had regained his powers and taken over Japan and the entire modern world. Later, at work, she met Rika, who asked if they would have dinner together that night. Emi apologized, saying she was busy. Rika then asked if she was going to check on what Mao was doing again. Emi admitted that she was and that she needed to keep a close watch on him. Rika then asked, "When will you stop following him?" Emi replied that she could never stop and quickly changed the subject, saying that it was complicated. That evening, after finishing work, Emi walked home, thinking to herself that Mao had destroyed her village and killed her father, which was why she could never forgive him. She reminded herself that as the hero, it was her duty to monitor the Dark Lord's actions and eliminate him at the slightest mistake. She arrived at Mao's apartment, only to be surprised to see Suzuno personally feeding Mao while Chi prepared more food for them. Emi asked what they were doing. Suzuno explained that she was trying to cook some French dishes and wanted Mao's opinion on the food. Chi and Suzuno then started arguing over who would cook dinner that night. At that moment, Ashiya walked in and suddenly requested time off from Mao. Later, Emi was on the phone with Emeralda, informing her that Ashiya had taken leave and looked like he was planning to return to Isla. The next morning, Emi was watching Mao's apartment as usual when she noticed that he and Ashiya were buying a large number of boxes. She found it odd since neither Mao nor Ashiya had enough money to afford all those things. Worried that the boxes might contain potions to restore magical power, similar to the ones Emeralda had sent her, she immediately called Emeralda to inform her. Emeralda agreed that it was suspicious and said she would have Albert investigate the situation. The following day, Mao approached the restaurant manager and asked if he could change his work schedule. The manager was surprised since this was the first time Mao had ever requested something like that. He explained that he had something urgent to take care of, which required a schedule adjustment. The manager immediately agreed and told him she would adjust the work schedule accordingly. Mao thanked her and she asked him which specific time he wanted to change. At that moment, she was eavesdropping on their conversation, looking visibly upset. That evening, Mao finished work early and walked home in the heavy rain. She ran up to him and asked if he was planning to return to Endisla. She also questioned why he had left work so suddenly. Mao reassured her that he didn't have enough magic to return and reminded her that he had told her that before. She then asked why he had left early. Mao apologized but said he couldn't tell her the reason. The next morning, Mao left his apartment. Emmy, as usual, was watching him, but this time, Chi was with her. Emmy told Chi that they needed to uncover what Mao was hiding. They followed him until he reached a construction site. Emmy suspected that he might be building a new headquarters for himself. Chi, however, dismissed the idea, saying that it was impossible since they didn't have the money for such a thing. As they continued watching, Mao suddenly noticed them spying on him and called out, asking what they were doing there. He then offered them food and explained that they needed money quickly, which was why he had taken a second job, because the tracking devices they had purchased were expensive. Emmy was confused and asked, "Tracking devices?" Mao explained that Lucifer had purchased the devices and placed one in Emmy's bag and another in Suzuno's shoe. Shocked, Emmy immediately rummaged through her bag, found the tracking device, and smashed it in anger. Emmy then demanded to know why Mao had kept it a secret from them if everything was so normal. Mao replied that he didn't want to burden them with the responsibility, which was why he hadn't told them, and he apologized for making them worry. She was relieved and said she was happy that he wasn't planning to return to Endisla. Emmy, however, questioned the large number of boxes they had been buying recently. Mao suddenly panicked and rushed home, questioning Lucifer about all the boxes. Lucifer claimed that it was his first time seeing them and that he had no idea what they were. Mao didn't believe him and angrily shouted at him. Looking at the boxes, he realized they were all filled with entertainment items that Lucifer had ordered. Furious, Mao punched Lucifer for wasting so much money on unnecessary things.